Welcome to our Cinematic Explainer. Today, we're venturing on an expedition straight through the glowing circuits and towering mechanisms of your Grade 7 science exam. Let's track the fundamental laws of physics and engineering together, step by step. So grab your gear, focus those binoculars, and let's embark on this safari of science.
Okay, let's dive right into this vibrant habitat of circuits. For our very first question, we've got to ask, what are the three basic things an electrical circuit actually needs to come alive and work? Well, just like an animal out in the wild needs food, a path to walk, and energy to expend, a circuit needs three distinct things. First, an energy source, like a cell. Second, a complete unbroken circuit made of conductive material for the current to flow through. And third, a load. This is a form of resistance, like a light bulb or a buzzer, that actually does the work.
Moving right along to question 2, which asks for the definition of a component. In the wild, an ecosystem is made up of individual organisms, right? Well, in our technological ecosystem, a component is simply one single part of a whole system. Every single circuit relies on these specific, crucial pieces working in total harmony to function properly.
Now, how do we track these components? Question 3 asks why we draw circuit diagrams using symbols instead of detailed, realistic pictures. The answer is pretty simple. Symbols give us a universal, easy-to-read language to map out these glowing pathways and show exactly how they connect. And speaking of connections, for question 4, what does it mean when energy cells are connected in series? And what do we actually call that? Well, when cells are lined up right next to each other in a series, they form what we call a powerful battery.
Question 5 brings us to a stark contrast in our environment, the difference between a conductor and an insulator. A conductor, like a glowing copper wire, acts a lot like a wide-open river, allowing electricity to easily transfer and rush right through it. An insulator, on the other hand, is like a dam. It's a material that absolutely does not conduct electricity, stopping the current dead in its tracks to keep us safe.
Let's observe a classic behavior here. Question 6 asks, what 4 parts make up the simple circuit your teacher demonstrates in class? Watch closely. It relies on a perfect 4-step cycle: a power source, like a battery, a switch to control the flow, a load, like a bright bulb to use the energy, and the conductors, which are usually those insulated copper wires to tie the whole shebang together. And this brilliantly illustrates our next 2 questions. Question 7 asks about the shape of our circuit diagrams. Even though real circuits are messy and curvy, we chart these components in strict rectangular boxes. Now, question 8 is absolutely vital for our survival out here. The 9 symbols we must recognize in the wild. You need to be able to spot the exact symbols for cells, switches, buzzers, resistors, electric motors, bells, voltmeters, ammeters, and basic conductive wire. Recognizing these tracks is key to acing this expedition.
Leaving the electric pathways behind, our expedition now enters the incredible world of mechanisms. Question 9 poses a really fundamental question. Why are machines actually useful to us humans? Well, machines are the ultimate tools of survival because they allow us to move objects further, faster, and just so much easier. They can even magically change the direction of our movement.
Now, let's look at the secret to a machine's majestic power. Question 10 asks, what is mechanical advantage? This is a truly magnificent principle. Mechanical advantage is the ability of a mechanism to make our work significantly easier by reducing the sheer input force or the effort we need to exert to move a heavy load.
Question 11 asks us to identify the ancestors of all modern engineering, the 6 simple mechanisms. We have the humble, lifting lever, the inclined plane, the screw, the wheel and axle, the wedge, and finally the spinning pulley. Just as complex animals evolved from simple cells, all the massive, complex machines in our modern world evolved directly from combining these 6 simple mechanisms.
Let's quietly observe one of these creatures in action. For question 12, what exactly is a pulley and how does it work? A pulley is a remarkable wheel with a groove carved right into it, designed perfectly for a rope or a belt to fit snugly inside. When you pull the rope, it glides over the pulley, spinning the wheel and effortlessly lifting the heavy load on the other side.
But hey, not all pulleys are created equal. Question 13 asks about a single fixed pulley. Does it give mechanical advantage? Surprisingly, no. A single fixed pulley brilliantly changes our pulling direction, so we can pull down using our body weight to lift something up, but it grants 0 mechanical advantage.
However, question 14 asks about a pulley system, which is two or more pulleys working together. This system actually multiplies our strength, making lifting easier, which means, yes, it definitely gives us mechanical advantage. Next up in the wild for question 15, we spot the crank. What is it, and what kind of lever is it adapted from? A crank is a fascinating adaptation of a Class II lever. It consists of a handle or an arm securely attached to an axle at a perfect right angle, allowing for continuous, highly effective rotation.
So the crucial point here is how we maximize its power. Question 16 asks how a crank actually increases mechanical advantage. It's simple, by increasing the distance between the handle you're turning and the central axle. The wider the circle you turn, the easier the work becomes. And for question 17, we need 4 everyday examples of cranks out in the wild. Just look at the pedals on your bicycle, the jack used for lifting a car, the reel on a fishing rod, and the egg beater in your kitchen.
Now look up. Towering above us on this expedition is the magnificent crane. Our case study begins with question 18. How do you know a crane's massive jib, that long arm stretching out, is actually a lever? Because, just like a seesaw on the playground, it possesses the holy trinity of levers, a fulcrum or pivot point, an input force, and a load being applied around that fulcrum.
Question 19 asks what class of lever this giant jib is. Depending entirely on where its trolleys are positioned, this towering beast acts dynamically as either a Class II or a Class III lever. But with all that weight, question 20 asks, what prevents a crane from toppling right over? Well, it survives by being perfectly counterbalanced by incredibly heavy concrete blocks situated directly on the opposite side. Moving to question 21, we must identify the specific mechanisms a crane uses to lift its loads. To hoist impossibly heavy steel beams high into the sky, the crane doesn't just rely on raw power. It relies entirely on a beautiful, synchronized combination of pulleys and levers working in perfect mechanical harmony.
Let's move to question 22 and see how this builds such a sturdy structure. What exact parts keep a crane upright and safe? To survive the intense gravitational forces of its habitat, a crane strictly depends on a heavy base holding it to the earth, a strong vertical tower, a balanced jib with its concrete counterweights, and perfectly taut support cables holding the whole skeletal structure together.
But how do we plan and build such massive beasts in the first place? For the final leg of our expedition, we leave physical machines and enter the highly organized, logical realm of the mind. Question 23. What is a flowchart? A flowchart is a powerful visual diagram that maps out the exact steps and decisions necessary to complete a complex task. It's literally a map for your brain.
Question 24 asks why we even bother using these flowcharts. We use them because these vibrant, structured charts separate chaotic processes into clear, manageable steps. They allow us to perfectly plan our tasks before we even begin our work, giving us a bird's-eye view to spot and solve tricky problems before they ever happen. And finally, question 25. What are the 3 basic shapes in the simple flowcharts you absolutely must know? Just like a perfectly balanced ecosystem, flowcharts rely on 3 foundational forms. First, the start and end points. Second, the process or action steps we take. And third, the critical yes or no decisions that branch off and shape our destiny. Like deciding whether to add sugar to your coffee, yes or no. And there you have it, explorers. We have successfully tracked and captured all 25 questions in this explainer. You are now fully equipped and totally prepared for your grade 7 science exam. But surviving the exam is just the beginning. It leaves us with one thrilling final thought. Now that you've mastered the foundational laws of circuits and mechanics, how will you use these laws of science to invent the future and change the world? Good luck out there!